¿Cómo está? We're here for another episode of your Dominican podcast, Que Lo Que. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, the ever so extravagant, always on point, Venecia Fernandez Lovely. Venus, ¿cómo está? ¿Qué lo que?
Aquí, mira, luchando como todo el mundo.
Mira,
But today I'm excited.
Well, and we have very good reason to be excited. It's less than 20 days everyone says every year, every 4 years, the greatest election of our time. But the truth of the matter is that this really is a really kind of generation defining, maybe country defining kind of moment. So who do we have, Venus, to help us through a little bit of this discussion?
Okay. Let me just preface this by saying, to me, in my heart, es una prima mía. I got a pleasure of working with her in the Florida legislature, in the Florida Senate, that I got to meet this fantastic Dominican, Dominicana con sabor, con sazón. And, she's paving the way for us in the political arena. We have... I had to just calm myself down. I got a little emotional. Un poquito. Dame un momentito. Thank you. Gracias. And let me just preface this by saying, when I say she's leading the path, she is the National Latino Engagement Director for Biden-Harris campaign. Not to say that there's not been other people doing this job, but maybe because I know her, or maybe because, she brought the Dominican flavor to this. I personally find out that she's like really, we talked about it earlier regarding the engagement. She's really bringing us as Latinos, as our community, as Dominicans, to the forefront of understanding that we have political power, that our voices matter, our votes matter. She's been dedicated to the political process. She is a graduate of Florida Atlantic University with a degree of political science. She has worked on the Hillary for America campaign as the regional political director, for Gillum for governor campaign, also in Florida. And, like I said, she worked in the Florida Senate with myself, and she was the chief legislative aide to Senator JJR, for those of you that know him. I'm just going to call her Prima. Laura.
Prima. Que lo que. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that intro. Oye, I'm going to just bring you along everywhere I go so you can introduce me.
Pero tú eres famosa. And for the ones that don't know you, they're going to know you now.
Exactly.
Because it's important to know people like you that bring not only, since the moment I've met you, you have never been shy a way of, especially in the political process, in the legislative process, to not only say that you're a proud Latina, pero Dominicana. And that is beautiful to see. That is beautiful to know. And, that also helped me, to be honest, to really be like, coño, si ella lo puede hacer, yo lo puedo hacer también. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And, let's start. Let's start with a little bit about your journey so people understand. You had the opportunity of living here as well as going to school in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. You went actually to the famous ABC.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your journey here, how you started, how you get where you're going. We want to know. Dígame.
Well, again, thank you for having me. So, yeah, I was born in Dominican Republic in Santo Domingo, and, my mom and my brothers, we moved to New York, the Bronx, repping the Bronx hard. We moved to the BX when I was very young, but, single mom with 3 kids. Desde el día que se acababan la clase to the day that it started up again, I went home. I went back to Dominican Republic, and I was there with my dad and the rest of my family. And so that was always very close, and something that that we keep very close. And that's why I'm so proud of it. And that's why I lead with that. When someone says, tell me a little bit about yourself. I was talking to someone last night. I started with, and I said, it's important to see how people, what they start with. And I started with, yo soy dominicana. And that's very, very important to me. So, we went back and forth. And then cuando llegó el tiempo del bachillerato, I actually got the chance to go back and went to school back in DR. So I think that was a really shaping experience for me. The difference between being around people who had been together since they were in pre-K and knew when the little brothers were born, y la mamá te conoce y te dice dónde tú estás, qué tú estás haciendo y no te ve estudiando. And the relationship there was so different. And it was really something that shaped me. But when I got back here and I came back and moved to Florida for college, I think I was always interested in the political system. I mean, we're Dominican. There are only two things that we do.
Wait. We've said it
You
before
said
on
it's
the
true.
show, but for those of you that don't know, it's two things: baseball, and politics.
Y yo no sé jugar pelota. So,
So three.
hola.
And you said the two options, you're like, yo no sé eso, so yo sé la otra. Okay, that's fine.
So that's where my heart has always been. Also, my dad's a journalist, and so I was always around sort of the political system, because what else do journalists talk about in Dominican Republic but politics and baseball? And so that was always something interesting to me. And then it came a point where you figure out that, and you know this, that unless you're in the room, then the policies that are being crafted don't include you. And unless you're there to say, well, what about this and what about that? That's beautiful that there's an education policy that would benefit my community. But how do you get that information to the parents? Because I was the one telling my mother what a FAFSA was and what that application meant. So unless you find a way to transfer that information to our community, then we won't know about this. But if we're not in the room, if the three of us are not in the room when those policies are being crafted, then that is not taken into consideration. So there comes a point where you realize, okay, I have to be in the room. And that's what inspired me to work in the process.
I love it. No, but you're absolutely right. And I think, and Elbert and I talked about it earlier in another episode, the greatest thing that came out of the pandemic is people realizing their voice and having to be part of those conversations and how to be a part of those conversations. Because, you things happen to you and then you go, pero ¿qué pasó? ¿Y por qué lo perdí? And we have to change our perspective, not only as a Latin community, but as Dominicans, because as powerful as we are with Dominican politics, we come here and there's been a lot of talk that we're not as movers and shakers as we are. We talk about it, hablamos de todo el mundo, y este senador, y este, but we're not that much, intricately involved. And I love that this year I have seen so many people, especially in Florida, Mangu con Biden, todo por Biden. But Elby, before I, talk to my prima, because I could talk to her for days.
No, algo me estaba, something that's been on my mind. I mean, I think the thing is that people, I mean, look, we're 19 days away, from this race, right? But people kind of forget, like at the beginning, there was some real question as to who the Democratic candidate was going to be, right? And so, and vamos a hablar claro, I don't think anyone necessarily thought, although, polls say something and people have money. Biden was a little shaky. Era un poco flojo. La gente no sabía. People didn't know. And so I'm curious as to why you chose to work, why you chose to work with him. And also, what also led you to also stay in those early days, right? Porque era fuerte. Era fuerte, la gente estaban hablando mucha cosa, so, and that's gotta be rough, especially for someone like you who's worked in different political circles and different things like that. So I'm just curious about that.
Well, I worked in the 2016 campaign, like many did, and that was painful. And it took me 2 days to sort of gather my thoughts afterwards. But I remember thinking 2 days later, we need Joe Biden. And I was 100% sure of that starting in 2016. And I was going to wait for Joe Biden to run. Given the circumstances that we are in, I know that Joe Biden can put us on the right track and that he can get us to the place where we need to be. I know the person that Joe Biden is, right? So that empathy that comes from him is very genuine to me. And I think that's based on life experience. Like I was saying, it matters that we're in the room so that we can bring our life experiences into that. And he brings his life experiences into the policies that he crafts. And he's a family man, and he's a loyal person, and he's a faithful person. And that reflects a lot of our community, right? We are very much about our family, about our faith, about community. And I see that reflected in the way that he engages with people. And I trust him. But apart from that, the mess and the sort of the mess that has ensued from Trump being elected, we need people who understand the process and who understand this government to clean this up, right? As my mother says, la experiencia no se improvisa. And so we need people that understand this system. And I think that with Senator Harris and with Vice President Biden, we can make sure that we put this country back on track and move it forward, because there's so much that has happened that we still are not even aware of. O sea, el desastre que este señor ha hecho, hay cosas que no nos hemos dado cuenta, ¿verdad? We don't know what the things we have seen come out of this Justice Department are only the things we've seen. But there is so much there that we need to fix, and so much that needs to be cleaned up. And I trust these two people to be the ones who guide us forward. But I always knew that the vice president could get us here, and that his vision and his warmth, his empathy would be something that people connected to. But like you said, no era fácil. There were some tough times. There was some.
We knew you were there in February, and we were like, should we call her? We were like, should we call her? It was like January, February. We were like, should we call her to be on the show? And we were like, well, no sé. We don't even know if she's gonna have a job in a couple of weeks. Damn, nobody. Like, let's figure this out. But it was tough.
Listen, January was tough. Pero tú sabes, nosotros, inmigrantes dominicanos, like, we know how to deal with tough times. Nosotros hacemos mucho con poco. So I'm like, no, there's no panic here. We're going to get it done. Eso es lo que Dios quiera. We got to be prepared. We got to keep working, and God will figure the rest out. But I know that my God didn't bring me this far to leave me. So I am going to keep pushing, because Donald Trump is president and we got work to do. So we stayed focused. And I have to say, I a lot of credit to the folks that we work with, but also to the vice president, sticking to what he knows, what he believes, and connecting with people directly. And I think that's why
Joe's not the only one that has experience. So do you, right? I mean, I think that the reality also is that there are a lot of people who worked in that 2016 campaign on a number of different types of roles and places, and whether they're doing, working for a particular candidate, or whether they're working, on, C4 and C3s. I mean, I think the shadow of 2016 looms large in a lot of people's minds and heads. Yes. And I'm curious, as someone who, again, is in a different role than they were in 2016, but also is a little bit older, a little bit wiser, right? What are some of the lessons? It ain't that much older. I just said a little. But seriously, that's what I get for my chromosome. But but what do you see as lessons learned, or things that you guys are trying to do? I don't want to say different, but that at least is like saying like, well, we got to do this even. And sometimes it's not a criticism of the past. It's just like understanding where we are in the present. What are some of those things that are just like, tenemos que hacer esto? And especially when it comes to, engaging, Latinos, right? I don't know, what are some of those things?
There are a million lessons to learn from 2016. But there are things that we didn't know that we know now. Right? I think a lot of us had this feeling of, there was a fear that it could happen, but we were like, este tipo, ¿quién? Like, no one's going to choose, but we know better. There are people that we didn't know felt a certain way, or we suspected, but have been emboldened by this president, right? Yes. And they came out of the woodworks. But now we know. Now we know they're out there. Now we know how they feel. Now we understand, but we also know there are more of us. So we know that we can stop it, and we can change it, and we can put this back on track. Another difference is Latinos will be the largest non-white voting bloc in this election. That wasn't true last time. We can, and we will be the ones that make the difference. And so when someone tells you, it's not just what someone is going to do over there, it's what we absolutely have the capacity and the responsibility to do. It is a completely different task at hand. And so if we're the ones that can decide it, we can't stay home. Porque no hay a quien culpar. It's going to be on us. We also have spent 4 years of a president who started his campaign on our backs. Literally from the moment he started running, started talking about us. Y el que tenía duda has seen 4 years of this man continuously attacking our community. So we now know what he will do. We didn't know. People thought maybe he'll turn into a regular Republican. Maybe it's all an act. Now we know that's not true. So we have a lot more information to work with. So now if I tell you, he started this attacking us and he has continued it. We have the numbers and the power to change it. Are we going to allow someone to continue attacking our community? No. We can stop this. And that's what we need to do so that no one ever tries this again. Que nadie se atreva, que nadie se le ocurra. Pues nosotros no van a poder. No nos podemos dejar.
Look, and I'll say this for all of you listening. Laura said it. She said it. She said it. We have the voice. We know what we're going to do. We can change it. So vamos a hacerlo. Vamos a hacerlo. I get so excited. I get so excited.
Y Laura,
I mean, and I'll say this before LB, I'm not excited. Don't think that this is me saying, and yes, I will be honest, I am voting Biden because there's no other choice for me. But this is not, our show has never been about telling you, that you have to vote either way. But the thing is, you have to vote. You have the power. Nosotros tenemos el poder para cambiar. If we want our system to change, we need to change it. We need to be part of that conversation. So, gracias. Thank you. LB,
no, and I was going to say, like, it's just not being part of the conversation, but also to be visibly part of that conversation, right? I think what's been interesting, especially as someone who grew up in New York and is now living in Florida, a lot of times being, especially in South Florida, people are kind of just like Latino in general, right? Not Latino in terms of, there's not a lot of organizing around, ethnicity, specific ethnicities and culture. And so I think what's been fabulous to see, regardless of whatever side of the aisle you're on, is Dominicanos standing up and saying, nosotros somos dominicanos y queremos estar en este tema. And, we're going to let you know that we're going to move as Dominicans, right? And so I'm just curious, you're across the country, you're moving around different places. How do you feel in terms of seeing, that level of mobilization, finally by the community here in Florida in a very visible way?
I'm pained that I'm not home in Florida to be a part of it, number one. But number two, this has been incredibly inspiring. I will be honest, it didn't make sense to everyone to sort of segment into groups. And that doesn't work everywhere. But I am now a through and through Florida girl. And I know that I carry my flag around, right? I wear that on my sleeve, and I have a couple of them at home. I know you have a couple flags at home. I know we all do. And when someone asked me, as we started talking in the beginning, when someone asked me, tell me about yourself, I don't start with, I am Latina. I start with, I'm Dominican. I'm from Dominican Republic. And I know a lot of people who start their conversations that way too. And so allowing us to have our own space to organize around whatever it is that motivates us, that moves us and drives us, I think is incredibly important. Because if you can't, there is no way to throw a Latino outreach blanket over the country. It's just not the same. There are regional differences. We are facing different issues. And frankly, Boricuas are not having the same conversation about TPS that Venezolanos and Salvadoreños are having. It's not the same issue. And so if you allow people their own space to have these conversations, so we're not competing, porque vamos a hablar claro, tú y yo sabemos that sometimes we get into this competing between communities, right? But if we give everyone their own space so we're not competing and then we can come together, the most beautiful part of this has been seeing how our Boricuas con Biden, Dominicanos con Biden are uplifting our Venezolanos con Biden and showing their work and really rooting them on and seeing that family come together because we all had our space. And we all can lead with that pride. To see how many hundreds of cars come out of Dominicanos con Biden, caravana, there's a sense of pride in that. And there's a sense of we're the ones putting in this work. When I see folks show, how many calls a specific group has made, there's pride in that. And so I think that giving us all our space is really important. And you can't take away from the fact that, and we should be proud of that, there's a Latino for the first time running the Democratic Party. And
Yes.
es Dominicano. Es Dominicano.
Sí.
And there is a Latina in charge of Latino outreach of this campaign, Dominicana. And I'm like, we're over here on the low, growing Dominican political power. Chinga ching, eh?
I love it. I love it. I love it. No, but I will say, piggybacking on that, I participated personally in La Caravana Dominicans, Dominican Americans, Mango con Biden. And what was really, really wonderful about it is that, for those of you that live in South Florida or Miami, know that there's certain areas that are very prominently Dominican, very prominently Cuban American. So what was great about this is that each caravana started off in those communities. And then we met. And then we just had Todos for Biden. So everybody got to talk about their issue, but at the same time come together and talk about Latino issues, immigration issues. And, what was great for me is to see, also the representation of Latinos in elected offices. Maybe having a conversation, because let's be also honest. Sometimes we don't know what's across the street if somebody doesn't take us or show us how to cross the street. So it was really grateful, and I was really honored and humbled and just amazed to have those individual conversations, but as well as having those larger conversations and having those elected officials. Because, as soon as you say Miami, people think Cubans.
Right.
And they forget that we have Venezolanos, Nicaraguenses, Ecuadorians, Dominicans. You know what I mean? We have a whole migrant community of, Central Americans. So everybody has their issues, like you said, and then just seeing them together, and as a mother, I was able to bring my children so then they can see it. So they not only had their Dominican pride, but their Latino pride. And I was like, for me, look, I've never lied about my age. I'm 42, got 3 kids, and I had been voting for a while, but this is the first time, and I've been in the process, but this is the first time as a Latina, as como una Dominicana, as a mother, that it was just a different feeling of it and a different excitement of it, of just being able to have no fear of this is my issue as a Dominican. This is my issue as a woman. This is my issue as this. And not feeling afraid to say it, because sometimes you're like, oh, I can only pick one. But the reality is that I'm not one issue. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not one minority. I'm not one this. All of those things. I am a woman. I am a mother of 3, that I don't. So there's all those different issues. So those are just, it's tough to have those political conversations, because in the past, it always seemed like you can only pick one. So this year, it was really nice to be like, yeah, there's levels of my, there's priorities, but there was levels. So it was really great. And, I thank you so much for because I know you had to play a part of it, because, the engagement. I have to keep on saying it. The national, vamos a decir nacional. Not, not in the corner. That's why she's not with us in Florida, but the National Latino Engagement Director. Your parents, I know they must be proud, because I know I'm proud of you. And with that being said, I want to ask you, I need to find out about your plans. Do you plan to run? Do you plan, or are you going to tell me, I'm just the woman behind the show? Tell me. Is it, dame un poco, tú sabes, un chin chin, nada más un chin, dígame algo.
Mira. No,
Cualquier cosa.
I do not see myself ever running for office. And much respect to those that do. That takes a lot. It takes a lot, and it takes a lot to allow people to sort of get into your life that way. Yo soy una mujer que no tengo la paciencia como... And I'll say this, I can, to have someone look into your life, into your past, into your family, and into your I don't think that I could take that, and I'm very protective of my family. I don't think that I could take that, but I also just like being, like you said, in the background. Like I do enjoy working on this and helping those brave people who are willing to put themselves out there and say, it is worth it for me to have people, view my life, to sometimes attack me just to do this work. That is also a thankless work, right? It's hard to be an elected official. It's really difficult. And people who put themselves out there for that, I admire greatly. And I am here to help those folks be there to represent our community. But Joe, I know so much.
we're not gonna hold you to that. We're not gonna hold you to that porque Dios es grande, so uno nunca sabe. So I mean, like I think if there's anything in politics we know that you know that. But I think the one thing that I would say too is that it's so important. It's so important for us to have people in positions, in different leadership positions, and to grow. Right? And to develop that pipeline, right? Porque the knock is always, yo no conozco a alguien, or we haven't made our teams as diverse because we don't know what's out there, or so hard to get talent. And part of it is that you have to provide people with the opportunity, right? To step up, to do things, right? And so I think that it says a lot about any really party or campaigns if they're putting us in positions where we can both lead and grow, right? Because a lot of times you see people with far less talent and with a different hue sometimes be given the opportunities that other people who've been doing this work for a while never get a chance to not even be in the room, not even get in the same hallway. Right. And so I think it's an important thing to kind of to also note that, like that someone at some point also took an interest in your growth. Right. Someone took an interest in saying, no, no one didn't say, "Oh, Laura's never done this before." Like someone looked at both what you've done and as your potential, right, to do that, right? And that's something that's important.
Yes, and that's really important. And I think we have to be intentional about that, right? We can't just let it happen. There are people who inspired me. There are people who have given me a chance, whether it is by directly giving me an opportunity or by just motivating me. Someone that we all know, Mayra Macias from Latino Victory, is someone who inspired me. And I tell her this all the time. She really inspired me to lean into my Latinidad and understand that what I bring to the table has more value because of my background, right? That is something that we should really bring with us everywhere we go. And I have taken it upon myself to, whether that is when I worked in the Florida Senate or when I've worked on campaigns in my work here now, if there's an opportunity that I can give to someone, I look for other Latinas. And that's who I want. One, because I feel like they understand my experience and also Latinas are just go-getters and badass. So, but I usually look for Latinas, and it started out as something that was not intentional. But it created a pipeline for a few of them and gave them that experience. And so it became intentional. And I go out of my way to find some Latinas that might not otherwise have the opportunity to bring them along. And so I think that it's important for all of us to do that when we see ourselves in those positions, to bring someone else. And Senator Harris says this. She says that her mother used to tell her, you might be the first, but you got to make sure you're not the last. And so I think it's important for all of us to really think about that. When we are in any position, to make sure that we're bringing other people along with us. Porque si no, ¿de qué vale?
No, eso sí es verdad. Y mira, Lara, again, we're here with Lara Jimenez, and she's the national, you want to say that again at the Venus? The
national,
right?
I'm going to say it. Ready?
Right.
Prepare yourself. National Latino Engagement Director for Biden-Harris campaign.
No, you got to say it.
National.
You got to say it. Pero
no, and that's what I'm saying. That's a big, es un título. Well, and I'll say for somebody that worked alongside with her.
Eso no una botella.
Es el título.
Y tú sabes como los dominicanos, nosotros nos gustamos nuestro título, olvídate esa, Yeah.
No, but like, let's be honest. Like, when I say that's a title, it's And I had, like I said before, I had the honor and privilege of working alongside her. Our office were actually just corner to corner. But I got to see her work. And it is great to see somebody work and be put in a position like that and embrace it. And, she deserves it. And, and, sometimes as Dominicans, as people, sometimes you don't want to put people where they need to be, because sometimes you have your personal fears of, like, if I throw something out, or the women. And I'm here as como una Latina, como una Dominicana, to say she has earned it, the position that she has. And I know, because I've seen her do it with her interns, like she said, bringing people up, even working alongside her, she always empowered me personally as well, just in our conversations and doing stuff. So, like, I want to say her title. Yo lo quiero decirlo, el título, el título.
We're so blessed to have her here on the show. And of course, she's been able to answer a couple of different questions for us, some tough questions. But, we get to this part of the program where it's really the toughest part. Right. And so to lead us through this, of course, Venus.
Mira, the first thing I want to ask you is, ¿tú estás preparada para los 3 golpes?
Yeah. I stay ready. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Let's go.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, golpe. ¿Bachata o merengue?
Merengue.
Traditional classic.
I know. ¿Totones o maduro?
Oh, totones.
Yeah. Okay, and espérate. Y este va a ser la pregunta del century.
Give it to me.
¿Morir soñando o Conchiclub?
Ooh.
You see, it's not all easy. There's always one.
That's nothing. Country.
You see.
En verdad, muy chinola, en verdad, pero sí.
No, esos son los 3 golpes, 1, 2, 3.
Nah.
So now we know a little bit about her. She she liked the country club.
She named the country club. Nah, la cosa es que yo te quiero preguntar. For the victory celebration, right? Because you got to envision it, right?
That's right.
What will you suggest to either Biden or Harris? Presidente o Bugar?
Mira. Me voy con presidente porque la noche va a ser. So we got to pace ourselves, ¿verdad? El parque no está acostumbrado, hay que empezar suave. So yeah, si no vamos con presidente no puede seguir la fiesta.
You heard it here first, folks.
Ella lo dijo. Muchas gracias. Thank you for finally, like, letting our people know that we got to start off suavemente, tú sabes. Slowly. We got to pace yourself.
You got to pace that.
Thank God we didn't bring Mama Juana.
Sí, no, yo no lo pregunté eso. You see, that's.
Vamos suave.
As they say, suave con take it easy.
Ay, Dios mío, this is the thing. Mira, a lot of
oh my God.
We're really, like I said, I think nosotros estamos orgullosos. We're happy for you. We're happy that you get to be in a position to impact not only our community but also in terms of future generations. And we really, really appreciate you taking out the time in this busy schedule to do that. As we wind down, what would you say would be in your mind, kind of three essential things that you'd like to share, with our listeners, right? Whether it's on being Dominicana, being a woman of color, about, what's going to go on next 19 days. Like, what are the 3 things you want to kind of leave people with?
Well, I think, harping back to some of the things that we've talked about, I would say 1, you have to be proud of who you are and where you come from. And please understand that your experiences, and I blame no one for starting from a different place, but we got to evolve there, because I know I started from a different place. You have to understand that your experiences and your background enrich the conversation. So please do not shy away from that. When you enter a room, enter with your Latinidad, enter as a Dominican, enter that space with the confidence that you are adding to that conversation and that your experience is valuable. and you have to bring it for the people who are not in the room with you. You are representing the folks who are not in the room with you. You got to speak for them. So bring that in. Two, we have to be involved in this process because, as we said, if we're not in the room, then the policies don't reflect us, right? And the candidates will not know what our experiences are and what they need to be speaking to. So go and actually exercise your political power. We will only grow our political power when we exercise our right to vote. So, por favor, have to vote. You have to be present. You have to be vocal so that everything that this government does, whether that be the county commissioner or whether that is your state senator or whether that is your president, it has to reflect you and what is important to you in your life. And for that to happen, you have to vote, you have to be involved, and you have to speak up. No le tengan miedo. If I told you that the things that are happening today would not have happened, if you would have spoken to that primo you did not want to talk to, porque hay muchos que no queremos hablar con ellos porque demasiado problema, speak to them. You can change the course of this country, but also of this world. We have the power to do that. We can speak to people, talk to them about why you're voting, what's important to you in this election, and how we can make a change. And remember, por más mala que estén las cosas, porque yo digo que no hay persona más contenta que una persona pobre en el Caribe. We know how to deal with misery. We know how to deal with pain, but our pain threshold is sometimes a little too high as Latinos. We have to recognize, por más mala que las cosas estén, the more we talk about the issues that affect us, remember that we're the ones that have the power to change. We have the numbers. No hay nada más para sentarse a quejarse. We can go change them. So go vote.
No, I think that those are all these things we want to make sure that that our friends, our family leave with that. And again, I think it's so important that the work that you're doing. And I think it's having reverberations. I think people are inspired. I think it's so important, especially in a place like South Florida, for other people to know, especially in South Florida, that all Latinos down here aren't Cubans, right? They're not all right-wing folks, right? I think it's a matter of solidarity to be able to show folks that that the community is diverse and that this is part of the track that we're taking, and you're helping get that message out to the world, both in the work that you're doing, but also just by your mere presence. So really, thank you. I'd like to say we're blessed. Venus, any kind of final thoughts you have before letting your prima go, at least for now?
Again, I can't say it enough, but I'll say it one more time because I can. Orgullosa, proud to say that you're my friend, that you're family, of what you've done for not only locally our community, but nationally our community, como Dominicanos Americanos, as Americans, as voters, as Latinos. Continue on. Just know that us here in Miami, us Dominicans everywhere are rooting for you, are always sending you blessings. And we know November 3rd is going to rock. And it's going to be rock because you had your hand in it. So, muchas gracias. Thank you. Orgullosa, proud. I'm getting a little emotional and I don't want to cry.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, amén, que así sea. And I promise when we win on November 3rd, because all of you are going to vote, when we win on November 3rd, ahí vamos a verle un merenguito, le vamos a la guerra, no se preocupe, le mando el video, van a ver.
No te preocupes.
There's a reason. If I'm here,
no.
Un merenguito
Tú sabes, esa fiesta va a ser, is gonna be lit. Mira, and so everyone go out to vote, early vote, mail-in vote, get it there. Bring your friend, bring your boo, bring your ex anything, bring anybody. Make sure that they vote. And as we say over here in Que Lo Que, as long as there's good bochincha to spread, Que Lo Que will always be there. Folks, take it easy.
Adiós. Bye.